Hello everybody, and welcome back to Let's Read Owen the Barbarian, Part 3, The Battle for Karak Vir, which is a name that is blatantly stolen from Warhammer. So it's been a little while since I read the second story. I like a longer gap between when I did the first and the second. I guess I was a bit disillusioned because the first one actually had some decent elements, and I'd obviously recognise that because I brought a lot of them into Darkness Dawns, many of them. But yeah, the second one really sucked, and I was kind of hoping for more. Honestly, I kind of vaguely got my hopes up that the second book could be all right, and the second book was freaking awful. It really was just an utter disaster. It was a complete mess. So when we joined, so it sort of put me off reading it, but I'm back, and let's do this. All right. So when we join Owen now, he is with his friend. Sven, a dwarf, and Owen's off to find Deathmaster Snitch, who killed his brother. And we went through all this stuff in the second book just to know that the cloak that Snitch was wearing was to the west or east, doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, the east. And Sven's like, oh, I'm just going to the east because there's a dwarf fortress there. So dwarf fortress. So do you want to come along? And Owen's like, yeah, all right. So here we are. Oh yeah, and he's had his hand cut off, hasn't he? So we'll see what that brings. Okay, the Battle for Karak Vir, Chapter 1. It's a hard road, and it helps when you have a friend. So again, this is I directly relating to what's happening in the story as opposed to some philosophical sort of like stuff that I was throwing out there. It's cool. It's all right. So here we go. The one-handed man, yes, and his dwarf companion rode through the rolling hills to the east. Word had spread of Owen the Barbarian like wildfire. The man from the south. I thought he was from the north. Is he from the south? Doesn't matter. I'm just assuming he's from the north. He can be from the south. The man from the south was known by few, yet he had helped save the city of Haleport, and had a part to play in preventing the realm from falling into the clutches of an undead lord. But the less said about that, the better. But yes, he's had 2 adventures now, and they're both pretty significant, so people are knowing about him. Not that there are any shortages of heroes and mercenaries in the world. In fact, there seem to be more of those than normal folk. Really? I'm not quite sure. But Owen seemed to have an impact on those who came across him, because he was a complete douche, and his name was respected if not feared. Showing, not telling. No telling, not showing. He and his dwarven companion Sven ride to the east to Karak Vir, the famous dwarven city. Owen searches for Deathmaster Snitch, the dreaded escaping assassin, and seeks his revenge for Snitch murdered his brothers. There we go, I didn't have to make that introduction because it's in the first 2 paragraphs. "We near Vir," said Sven to Owen. "You can see it on the horizon over there." Owen looked in the... Okay, so there should be a thing there. Okay, no matter. Owen looked in the direction of the dwarf was pointing. In the distance was a block of rock which hadn't been worn by wind or rain. Built on the rock was a city with towers piercing the horizon like needles. I need him to point this out. The city was like any other Owen had seen, though the walls were shorter. I don't think that's a mismatch. I think I actually mean to say it is like any, because then I put although the walls were shorter, rather unlike. Now that they were needed for the rock they were built on was 30 feet high, and also leading up to the gate were thousands upon thousands of steps. So this is way in the distance on the horizon, but we can see there's thousands and thousands of steps. Why do you need thousands and thousands of steps when it's only 30 feet high on the rock? I mean, alright, it would take a few steps to get 30 feet high, but not thousands. It appeared to Owen that these were the only way in. Okay, so basically it's a city on a hill is what you're saying. Karak Vir, said Sven, almost in a dream state. It stood against orcs, chaos, elves, and the evil chaos dwarves. None have been able to take it, not even with their great war machines and magic. The city has stood for thousands of years. My grandfather helped build it. Your grandfather, cried Owen. But you said it was thousands of years old. You don't know much about dwarves, do you? Said the dwarf, smiled smugly. No, but I do know that they are the best builders in the land. And although they hate magic, they carve magic runes into their weapons. Exposition in dialogue. You only know that because of my axe and the city. Owen smiled, and oh yeah, so he's only just garnered that from the, 2 things he's just seen now. All he knows about. Okay, fine. It's all pretty bad so far, I gotta say. My grandfather was 426 when he died, said Sven. Owen looked into space for a moment. Now I see. So Sven, how old are you? By human standards, well past my time. So he didn't know that dwarves were long-lived, but I guess now he does. Stop, said Owen, as they rode through a wood. He dismounted. We're only a few miles away, said Sven. Couldn't you wait till then? Owen ignored him and knelt near the side of the muddy track as he began his study of the ground. Skaven tracks, Sven, he said glumly. What? Burst out the dwarf, grabbing his axe. Where? How? No? Impossible! The dwarves checked the woods. He started to choke over his beard. Owen was glad of this as it allowed him to get a word in. That's quite good. That paragraph's quite good. That paragraph. Best bit of the book so far. Let's see if we can beat it. Not well enough, he said calmly. But you needn't worry. The tracks are at least half a day old. So, yeah, they couldn't have just stopped nearby. The dwarf calmed down. Which way are they headed? Into the wood. Well, I think that we'd better tell the others. Owen did not listen, but instead took his horse Midnight by his reins and led him into the wood, the grumbling dwarf following. Yeah, Owen doesn't listen to anyone. He's not bothered. Oops. Oh, okay, there we go. Hang on. Oh god, I missed it. Okay. For about an hour, Owen followed the faint tracks. He had been the best tracker in the track. Of course, he's the best tracker. He didn't be like an adept tracker or anything. He's the best tracker in the tribe, and he'd got a lot of practice hunting deer and his enemies. Oh, I'm just so into this guy, aren't I? He's so infallible. I have to make him the best at everything he does. They trod carefully and silently. The horse and pony seemed quite happy to be out of the sun for a while. It was sunny. Sven seemed to get more and more tense as they went deeper, and eventually he whispered, "We must go back." "In the name of the gods, why?" hissed Owen. "We're nearing Canunda." Canunda? Yes. What the hell's that? It's a cursed temple Canunda. In ancient days... I don't care, hissed Owen. Why won't you go? Afraid? No, but evil things lurk there. I don't care. I don't care about the ancient ways of your people. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. I'm probably going to think of anything anyway, so I just said it doesn't care. Why won't you go? Afraid? No, but evil things lurk there. Yes, Skaven. Come, now let's see what the scum are doing. They could be massing an attack on Caragvir. Impossible, said the dwarf. I think there might be, with this book entitled The Siege of Caragvir or whatever. It was impossible the Skaven were here to start with, isn't it? Or wasn't it? The dwarf's face went red with rage, and he had to take a swig of his water bottle to cool him down. Come, said Owen. We shall see what the rats are doing, then tell the city. You have my word. Sven knew that Owen would not break his word, nor change his mind. Yes, because he's so awesome. The young fool would get killed if he went alone. He didn't want that. The dwarf, no. Okay, so I've actually called Owen a young fool. Marks to me. Soon after, hidden in the trees, the giant and the dwarf were looking at the temple of Canunda. Owen could see why the dwarves thought it cursed, for it was nothing more than the giant stone head of a dragon. Its mouth was open. Its lower jaw was only present by rows of teeth, while the upper jaw seemed to defy gravity, hanging off the ground from the start of the nose to the snout. Must have been 20 or 25 feet long. I'm losing it. The carvings were so lifelike. Owen shuddered. It's a big head of a dragon, basically. Barbarian was not looking at the temple, but what was going inside. Row upon row, Skaven walked into the mouth. It must go into the earth, Owen said. Yes, answered Sven. A maze of tunnels. Shouldn't you whispering? But we thought the temple was empty. You thought wrong. Come, said Sven, we must tell the city. Owen watched the rats a moment longer and followed Sven. If he knew the Skaven as well as he thought he did, they were planning something big. How does he know the Skaven? He hasn't even come across them until the city of Haleport, but I suppose since he knows that all they do is lay siege to cities, he can assume they're doing it now, so... He knew that the only possible answer for this was that the Skaven are planning it to attack Caragvir. Of course they were. Of course they are. That's the only way, reason they could be there. How coincidence, just amazing coincidence that they've just gone east and they found them. They haven't found Snitch, but I get the feeling Snitch is going to be there. Okay. Chapter 2, Runes and Magic, different but the same. Different but the same. To Owen's surprise, they had no trouble getting into Caragvir. Apparently Sven was a close friend of the king, Orlog the Seventh, and everyone who is a friend to Sven is a Sven to the dwarves. Of course he's a friend to the king. I mean, why wouldn't it be the friend to the freaking king? Okay. Sven told Owen to go and buy a hook from the weaponsmith. A hook? Flint, whose workshop was just across the street. Sven went to organise an audience with as he does. I'm just off to go and see him mate the king, because, you know, I know him. So I'm just going to go and see the king. As Owen walked through the streets, his horse, tired from the journey, was taken to the stables. He noticed how the dwarves act. We got up the thousands of steps then. No bother at all. Thousands of steps. Just like, whatever. No bother. The horses climbed up thousands of steps. I think it would have had bother. Unlike the human cities he had been in, people rushed hurriedly about, often knocking into others and gossiping about the weather, war and prices. Unlike in human cities he had been in, people rushed hurriedly about, often knocking into others and gossiping about the weather, wars and prices. The dwarves were completely different. No. But never mind. They walked with a purpose, knowing where they were going and walking to get there. They were also very quiet. The noise was half of what Owen had expected, precisely half. It was only 50 decibels. But then dwarves don't talk much anyway, he reasoned. Okay. Why is he buying a hook? He reached Flint's weaponsmith. It was just a stone shack. How can a shack be made of stone? On the walls were weapons of every description, as well as tools which Flint used to make them. Owen walked inside, having to duck under the top of the dwarven door. Owen had been in many smithies before, and he could see nothing different about this one. It looked the same as forging anvil, buckets of water and the like, because I don't know what goes in forges, so I just know it's a forging anvil and they've got some water lying around. It smelt the same, ash and smoke, and the giant could not see anything special about the dwarven forges. Hello, said Owen. Just a second, came a voice from behind the forge. I can't get these blasted bellows to work. Owen was just about to say something when flames flared up from the forge. That's got it, cried the voice. A face came out from behind the forge. The face was that of a dwarf, obviously. Long hair, bushy eyebrows, and an endless beard. But the face was covered in soot, and the only thing that Owen could see was the eyes which widened as they saw him. Oh, said Flint. This is Flint. A human. That's a rarity. Well, in these parts anyway. Let me introduce myself. The dwarf stepped out from behind the forge. Flint's clothes were just as sooty as his face. I am Flint Fireforge. Yes, we know, because I've already said it in the text twice. Finest blacksmith in all of Caragvir. I am Owen. I'm here to find a hook for this. He held out the stump on his... Oh, he's got to get a hook. He's got to be a freaking pirate. Ooh, nasty that, said Flint. Well, let me see what I can do for you. Flint went over to a cupboard and opened it. It was filled with hooks to replace missing hands. Is this like a booming trade? Hooks for missing hands. They were all manner of shapes and sizes and made of all metals imaginable. They're going cheap, said Flint, looking at his collection. Just 40 gold each. Are you sure about that? Said Owen, grinning. Interesting response. Yes, said the dwarf, wondering why the man had asked this. All right, said Owen, who took out a pouch filled with 200 gold coins. If you're sure. Flint's eyes opened when he saw that. What, does he want to pay more for them? I mean, I know you give him... Here's 200. Wait, he cried, I could interest you in something more. Paused as he thought about the right word. Useful. Okay. This was badly handled, but I'm assuming he's going to, look into his sort of special stock now rather than this sort of rubbish he's got in the cupboard. Before Owen could answer, the dwarf rang off, grabbed a bunch of keys, dragged the box from under the table. He can't run off fire if you saw him grab the keys, and unlocked it. The dwarf took out one of the most precious things he had. It was a hook, shaped like a half moon. It was 6 to 8 inches long, with strange markings all along it. The magnificent half moon of Mayon, the dwarf said, studying the strange markings along its edge. I gotta take a drink as we behold the half moon of Mayon. It was given to me by a wizard as a reward for saving his life. That, really? What am I supposed to do with it? You could have sold it. So you didn't even forge it. You didn't even forge the thing that I'm going to go and buy off you. What's so good about it? Said Owen. It's made from an ancient metal known only to the dwarves. So you didn't make it. It's the strongest metal in the world, made from ancient dragon forges. The dwarf then brought it down onto the anvil. Sparks flew and the anvil was in 2 pieces on the floor. He's just broken his own anvil to demonstrate Oh, how much I saw? 200 gold. Amazingly enough, that's what he put down. What if it was 400? I would be screwed, but no. Great, Owen. You can afford it. But you'll have to get it fixed to you too at the apothecaries, and that will cost more. But he only has 200 gold. Owen slowly awoke, his vision was blurred. Suddenly he could see plainly. I think we skipped a little bit somehow. It was obvious that it was no longer in Flint's the apothecaries. It was Flint's the blacksmith a minute ago, because he was in a grand hall. He sat with what could be hundreds of dwarves. The halls of the chamber were stone with figures of angels, demons, dwarves, elves, humans, and every other encountered race on them. Great tapestries hung from the ceiling, made from silk and showing forgotten battles of the dwarves. All the dwarves were silent. The voices came from the other end of the hall. So they weren't the dwarf spoke. So not all the dwarves were silent because the dwarf was speaking. The dwarf that was speaking was Sven. Oh, of course, yes. The grand is just off to go and see his mate the king, and then suddenly we're in this massive hall with tapestries and stuff. And how many dwarves? Hundreds of dwarves. The dwarf who was speaking was Sven. He stood before the great block of jet, upon which was a throne of stone. Now, this great big block of jet, I remember jet being in the second book, because it was Arkan's the Black's throne, wasn't it? I remember it saying, it was a metal that was, I think that was sort of lost to the world. And here we have a massive block of it, on which a throne is sat. So the dwarves are just completely out to Arkan, completely. I think that's how it was, anyway. The arms of the throne were two lions ready to pounce. The back was that of a great eagle. Its wings were about 6 foot wide, and apart from their colour, looked almost real. What do you mean, apart from their colour? The bird's head looked down on the dwarf on the throne. So it's a fancy throne. I love how I go into great detail about stuff like this throne and other things like that. But this I just skip other stuff completely. It's completely inconsistent. The dwarf was the king. It was obvious that he wore a helmet of gold and armour made of scales, and he sat on the bloody throne on the block of jet. What the scales were made of, Owen could not tell. By the king's side was a great ruined axe, which reminded Owen of his. The dwarf seemed older and more gnarled than the rest in the room. Owen then saw the hook on his arm. The hook was fixed to the bone and nothing... Right, okay, so now now we're talking about Owen's arm. It's like, the dwarf seemed older and more gnarled than the rest of the room. Owen then saw the hook on his arm. It's like... I thought, what, the king's got a hook as well? But no. Now we're talking about Owen. The hook was fixed to the bone. Now the hook, fixed to the bone and nothing could wrench it free. The dwarves had done a good job. How did he pay for this? He had a bag of 200 gold, which he gave to obviously pay for the hook. And then he's got to go to the apothecaries, which I'm assuming he had to do, which he's done, because he's got it attached to his bone. And... so it's on him, but how did he pay for it? Okay, well, he's got a hook that can cut through anything. And an axe that can heal him and let him see in the dark, and he doesn't need to eat or drink, so he's becoming quite the superhuman. He'll be able to fly next. The hook was fixed to the bone. Okay, he studied the hook and smiled. It would be very useful. He began to listen to what Sven was saying. The Skaven scum must be planning an attack on the city. Of course they must be. We all know how rich it is and controls all the trade from the west to the east in this region. So I have a great big, 1,000 steps to go up to it then, because surely that's going to keep people away. They're going to go somewhere easier. This is true, said the king, Orlog. His voice was deep and throaty. See, I love putting, some description to the voices of people. But I shall not send my dwarven warriors into those woods without knowing what to expect. Sven, I want you to gather up your comrades from years ago and go to the temple again. Try to get an idea of the size of their force and report. Haven't we already done that? Isn't that just exactly what we've bloody done? If you were to send a force into the forest, or the woods, and you go to the temple of Conundra, or whatever it was, and you see Skaven filtering in, seem like a lot of them, then your job's done. You know what you're dealing with. A lot of bloody Skaven. But no, they've got to go back and do the same thing. Then we will see if we will attack. Okay. As you wish, my lord, though I do wish to bring someone else along too. If he says he is willing. Owen knew he was talking about and rose to his feet. All the eyes in the room turned towards him. Well, well, said Sven. I shall come, replied Owen. Of course he would. The king, noting the human size and knowing magic, seeing the axe and hook, thought it best not to argue. Why the hell well, first of all, why would the king argue against an ally going with them? And secondly, he's the freaking king, but he dares not have a go at Owen, even if he was going to. He's like, oh no, that's Owen the Barbarian. I can't, no. I'm only the King Orlog the Seventh, Anyway. Chapter 3. Sometimes being the best is not good enough. Oh, usually it is, that way. Who are these companions of yours, Sven? Owen asked as they left the hall. Friends I fought with long ago. You already know one of them. Flint? Yes. Who else, then? Thorn, said Sven simply. Owen waited for Sven to say more. When he didn't, Owen said, who's Thorn? Thorn the Slayer, the only one for miles around. What's a Slayer? Sven seemed irritated by the question. A dwarf who seeks death at the hand of the biggest monster possible, straight after Warhammer. Owen didn't care to ask more. Others? He asked. Dead, said Sven. Oh, because others. Well, at least there's not like half a dozen of them, like there was last time. Although it's the same setup. It's exactly the same setup as last time. He arrives at a strange place and gets offered a quest. Takes it. Alright, in this one he's got a little more personal sort of like oomph to go and get there. Motivation. And then there's a group of them going to go into a dungeon. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same setup as the second one. But hey, maybe things will end up differently in there. They came into the streets. Flint was all willing to come. Years as a smithy, low profitable, had been dull. Flint told Owen that it was he who had dragged him to the Great Hall to sleep off the... After a few hours during which Splinters decided which axe to take, they found Thorn. The Slayer had been sat in a pub mumbling to himself. Thorn was not a normal dwarf, though he was short and had lots of hair. His head was bald, his beard was orange. Oh, he wasn't normal because he was ginger, and he was covered from head to toe in bright blue tattoos. He wore a pair of dirty, smelly trousers, showing his immense pot belly. Thorn! Cried Sven. But wait, have we? The Slayer looked up from his drink. Sven! Shouted Thorn. How long has it been? Too long. And Flint, why have you got a weapon? He asked. Then he sighed. Where are we going? Okay, so the party. So we've got Sven, Thorn, Flint, and Owen. So there's only 4 of them this time. There's only 4 of them. Where are they? Asked Sven as the 4 of them sat where the 2 before had seen hordes of cavemen entering the temple. But now it was deserted, as it was supposed to have been. As deserted. Okay, right. Yeah, initially. Okay. Inside, no doubts. Shall we go back? Asked Flynn. Hopefully. Oh, so now it doesn't even want to go in, doesn't Flint? It's like, yeah, okay, we're here, but can we go back? No, that's fine. We shall go in. Agreed. The 4 of them checked the nearby woods for any signs of lookouts before entering. There were many skaven tracks in the muddy ground. Owen bent down. Fresh tracks, he whispered. Only a few moments old. We move. No light, no sound. Oh, I'm sure. No light, no sound is an Arnie quote. No light, no sound. I don't know what film it's off. But it's definitely an Arnie quote, that. It's off some sort of cheesy 80s action with Arnie in it. Sure, no light, no sound. Who made him the leader? Grumbled Flint. Well, he is perfect, so why wouldn't he be? Soon the muddy ground turned to stone, and the stone to tiles. Torches hung from the roof every 100 paces. This was not enough, as they passed from dark to light to dark. Oh god, the tunnel ended in a spiral staircase. The companions led by Owen descended, because he's got an eye, so you can see in the dark. A few hundred steps later, they came to a long, tall room with pillars, stretching as far as the eye could see. The sides of the room could not be seen, nor could the far end of the room was lit with a single light heading. For the room was lit with a single light hanging from the roof. I don't like it, said Flint. Not many would, said Owen. Come, said Thorn. Stay close and keep your eyes open. The 4 of them advanced slowly, staring into the blackness. When they were under the torch, they've just... you just know what's going to happen. I mean, it's so... How much... A great big vast chamber with one light source that you're going to wander straight into the middle of. The four of them advanced slowly. When they were under the torches, it suddenly went out, and the room was filled with ferocious chittering sound. Owen heard someone shout Skaven, and he grabbed his axe. He brought it around and felt blood cover his hand. I hope that wasn't a dwarf you got there. He thought he felt another before he was dragged to the ground. Sven Thorn, he cried. We are... He suddenly lost all of his senses. Someone kicked him in the back. Owen could just groan. He felt icy water splash on his face, and he woke with a start. His hand and hook were tied behind his... Aha! So yes, your hook will do nothing now, will it? Tied behind his back, and Skaven were looking down at him, sneering horribly. Oh, they've been captured. Wasn't surprised that his weapons had gone, though he didn't know why they hadn't killed him. And that mistake would cost him dearly. A rat kicked him. Again. Yeah, why don't they just kill him? Let's find out why they don't just kill him. Because there's always a reason, isn't there? Get up, it ordered. Owen stumbled to his feet. He was in a fairly small room. Oh, we've been moved. Its walls and roof were rough. They were rock. Of course they were rock. So Owen guessed they were still underground. His woman companions were being woke up in the same way he was. But Owen was not paying any attention to the walls. Why would he? But to the cloaked figure sat on the only chair in the room. He recognized him instantly. It was Deathmaster Snitch. Owen rushed at him. But in his rage, he had forgotten about the other rats, despite his size and strength. Why would you forget? Okay, so he's just gone straight for him. He's got both of his hands tied behind his back, but he's still gonna like, I'll bite your legs off. But despite his size and strength, they dragged him down. Yes, and the fact that he's got his hands tied. Despite that, they win, amazingly enough. So, you recognise me, Hillman, hissed Snitch, a voice which reminded him of Arkan the Black. Okay. Well, I remember you also. You whose brother I slew at Haleport. You who wants revenge. You who played a major part in the defense of Haleport. And you who has been following me since then. He knows a lot. Owen stared at the Deathmaster, hate bursting in. Yes, we know. We know that he hates the Deathmaster. We know. Okay, you don't have to keep saying it. You are clever, Hillman, Snitch went on. Clever and resourceful, which is why you shall die slower than your friends. Owen continued to stare hatefully at him. Kill the dwarves at dawn, ordered Snitch. Save the human for me. It will be you who needs saving, barked Owen. Snitch rose and strode across to Owen. Snitch was a full foot shorter than Owen, but still the Deathmaster could stare straight into Owen's steel blue eyes and made the giant cough with his breath. Saving? Snitch's nose twitched. From who? You? You who will be dead by this time tomorrow, or the dwarves perhaps, in their pitiful city. Here we go, for right now hundreds of Skaven are mining through the rock beneath it. Soon it will be ours. Your death will be long and painful, Hillman. Take them away. Alright, so they're mining under the city, which is something out of Darkness Dawns as well, so... But that, you know, that wasn't intended. Yes. So, you just get this villain's exposition. Yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm gonna kill him. Yeah, and we're gonna mine through the rock and why? Why are they attacking? Oh, I suppose because they're evil and that's what they do. But why not just kill them? Why not kill the dwarves now? Okay, you want to torture the human, which I can vaguely get, although it makes no sense. But there's no reason to not kill the dwarves. There's no reason at all to, you know, kill them at dawn. Kill them now. What's the difference? Oh, I don't know. Chapter 4. Strength comes in different forms. They were led through a great cavern, which seemed to be the rat's sleeping chamber because of all the straw mats on the floor, down a flight of stairs to a large room from which a giant cage was hanging on a chain. There were 2 Skaven in the room other than the 5 that escorted them, but they left once the cage had been lowered by a cog mechanism. Who left? There were 2 Skaven in the room other than the 5 who escorted them, but they left once the cage had been lowered by the cog mechanism. 4 companions were shoved inside. They were not the only ones. Okay, I don't know. They were not the only ones in the cage. There was one other. She was an elf. She had silver hair, which was cut short at the shoulders. So not that short, is it? And brown eyes. She wore a leather jerkin, much like Owen's, and blue leggings. She was almost as tall as Owen, though not half as broad. Well, good. you know? Otherwise she'd be big fat heifer, wouldn't she? Welcome to hell, she smiled. Who are you? Asked Sven. He was nursing a cut on his forehead. Oh, poor Sven. One of us got injured. Oh, no! I am Chandril, a shader. Oh. Owen had tales of the shader, living off the land, being in harmony with it, swearing to protect the woodland another swear. I swear to protect the woodlands in return for its food and shelter, as his father had told him. Oh, here we go. Here we bloody go. This bloody omnipotent father who knows everything. Never get on the wrong side of a shader if you're lucky enough to meet one, for they are very rare. They are the most respected warriors, faster than elves. But she's an elf. No. She's an elf! Faster than elves, quieter and much more deadly. Few can stand against them. It was obvious that the dwarves knew this also. Your servant, bellowed Flint. Shader, that's something that I can use, because I don't think Shader's taken out of anything. I don't know why I didn't put, like, War Dancer, since I was just nicking everything out of Warhammer, but fine. A shader, that's kind of neat, that sounds good. Your servant, bellowed Flint. Don't patronise me, Chandril said angrily. The dwarf sat against the bars, as did the others. And you are? She asked Sven. I'm Sven, here in the service of Orlog the Seventh to... And you? Asked Chandril to the others, interrupting Sven. So she's as much of a bitch as Owen is a douchebag. They should get along fine. Flint Fireforge, weaponsmith. Thorn, dwarven slayer. Thorn was trying to match Chandril, her being a shader, but it didn't work. Oh, so yeah, a shader was much better than a dwarven slayer, isn't it? And what have you, one-handed barbarian? For an answer, Owen swiftly broke through his ropes, cut through some of the bars, jumped down through them, and onto the two surprised-looking Skaven below. One caught Owen's hook in his throat, the other a giant fist in his face. Owen lowered the cage to the ground. I am Owen. Are you a magician? Chandril asked, open-mouthed. Sometimes, smiled the barbarian. I was kind of curious about how they were going to escape. I thought it might be something clever, but no. In 3 lines, we have Owen breaking his ropes. If he could do that, if he could just break them, why wouldn't he do it when he's face to face with Deathmaster Snitch? Unless he was biding his time, but he wasn't, because he was in a blind rage trying to charge at him and being bore down by all the Skaven. Unless that was an act, which I very much doubt. Cut through some of the bars, because he's got that hook that can cut through anything. Jumped down on them onto the 2 surprised-looking Skaven and just took them out. Hook and fist. Pfft. Then he lowered the cage to the ground. I am Owen. You a magician? Asked Chandril open-mouthed. Sometimes, smiled the barbarian. God, awful, 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 awful. Chapter 5. Fight and you might die. Run and you'll live, at least a little while. That's William Wallace. That's straight out of Braveheart. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live, at least a while. Yeah, that's totally off Braveheart. That is. When was Braveheart made? I'd like to think, I would love to think that I thought of that on my own, and this is complete coincidence. I would love to think that, but I have a feeling it's not. Anyway, so fight and you may die, run and you'll live, at least a while. It was decided that Owen and Chandril would try and cause as much panic and disruption as possible, while the dwarves would try and get back to Carrickfear to warn of the Skaven's plans, which was helpfully just laid out. Owen would have preferred it if Chandril had gone back to the with the others. What was her name? There was an elf in the first book. I think her name was Katini or something. Katini, yeah. When they met her and she wanted to help, and find my place again. Sorry. He didn't want her to help either. I remember him and Cardinal were like, "Oh, you're a girl." It's the same thing here. Owen would have preferred it if Chandril had gone back with the others, but she said something about about Snitch killing her sister, and she swore to vengeance. Of course she is. It was agreed that the dwarves. I love how this is just like vaguely mentioned. It's like, oh yeah, Snitch. I mean, it's also extremely convenient that they're on the same quest, like freaking amazingly convenient. But also, it's like the entire book is about. I mean, the entire first book is the build up to his brother's death, even though his brother's only in it for about 2 lines, but, you know, this is just like an aside. It's like, oh yeah. I need a reason for Chandril to stay back. So, oh yeah, Snitch killed his sister. It was agreed that the dwarves would take the dead Skaven's weapons because Owen had his hook and Chandril could use her hands as well as a sword, she said. Oh, he's letting them go unarmed as well. That's great. Owen and Chandril entered the cavern where the rat scum slept. Most of the beds were occupied. The two of them began to move silently through the massive Skaven, and Chandril was surprised to see that Owen could move without a sound despite his grip block. Of course he can. Of freaking course he can. They reached the door to Snitch's chamber. Chandril stopped and pointed. Owen turned to look in that direction. Just further up the cavern was a door that was slightly ajar. From what they could see, the room beyond was filled with weapons. He nodded, and they passed the door of the smasher to the armory. You could have just gone in there and stabbed him with your hook. You've just said they don't really need weapons because, you know, he's got his hook and you've got hands as well as a sword. But all right, pass up on the Deathmaster to the armory, which just happens to be there. Owen slightly opened the door. The room was empty of Skaven, but full of weapons and armour. Wake up, came a cry from behind. One of the Skaven had seen them, and a lot more were just about to. They rushed into the armory, and Chandril slammed the door shut just as the Skaven bodies were starting to ram into it. The Shader grabbed an axe, rammed one end into a crack in the floor, and the other against the door. Bar the door, she cried. It won't hold. Owen looked around. Apart from the weapons, the only thing in the room was an anvil fastened to a fairly large rock. The barbarian took a stance around it, legs apart, his forearms against the thinnest part of the anvil, and lifted with all his might. His biceps bulged to impossible size, his leather jerkin and leggings tearing as every muscle in his body worked together to lift the anvil and the rock. Oh, God! His face grew red, and he screamed with the agony, but the giant lifted the anvil and stored off the floor onto his chest. He staggered over to the door. Chandril moved away, and the anvil fell onto the axe. The axe shaft broke into splinters as the weight fell onto it. Owen collapsed onto the floor, exhausted. Chandril could only stand there, wondering what if what she had seen was possible. She knelt down beside him. I mean, it's just nothing he can't do. I mean, he's just a guy who can do anything. He's like, oh, we need to escape from the cage. Okay, 2 lines, done, you know? Bar a door. We could have, you know, got, like, weapons against it, you know, like Chandril was doing. We could have just barred the door that way. Or, you know, we don't need a lot of time. You're going to grab a sword or something. There was no real need for this, was there? Because you're only in there to grab stuff and, you know. You got yourself trapped, by the way, so well done with that. But, I mean, you know, how much time do they need? Unless there's, I don't know. I'm frightened to scroll down, really. But yeah, I mean, it's just another thing that he can do. You know, it's like, oh, it's Owen. Yeah, this not only an anvil, but a fairly large rock, and he's just lifted it, and he's ripped his leather jerkin because his muscles bulge so much. Christ, is there nothing this man can't do? Oh, it's just awful. Well, don't just sit here, he said. Arm yourself. Yeah, okay. To his delight, Owen found that his axe was there, thanks to Garner, and he felt refreshed as soon as he touched it. Of course it was bloody there. Of course it was there. He took a breastplate, which with a golden eagle carved onto it, and a helm, which was gold and silver. It was in the form of a dragon with its head above Owen's. This is more detail that we don't need. In the centre, and wings swept back over the ears. Its tail curled down to give his neck some protection. He rather enjoyed cutting swords in two with his hook. It's a bit wasteful. While Chandril got ready. I'm pretty damn sure in the second book he said he would never wear chainmail again. And here he is with a breastplate and a massive helm. But that doesn't matter, you know, because he looks cool now. You know, he's got a golden eagle carved into it and a helm in the form of a dragon. So he looks badass. He's got his hook and his sword, you know, his axe even, sorry, which happens to be there. Since Shaders do not wear armor, Chandril armed herself with a great shield, a sword, daggers, a short sword, and other small weapons. All the while, Skaven were bashing the oak doors with no success. Well, it's only bad. I mean, the door would break, and they could get in that way. I don't care if there is an anvil next to it. I mean, the door would physically smash. They could smash the door. They have weapons. They could physically break the door. Ready? Asked Owen. Chandril nodded. Owen kicked away the anvil. Oh, so now it Now it moves easy enough, and the door burst open, Skaven pouring in. Owen's axe was unstoppable, swinging it left and right, dead and dying Skaven carpeting the floor. The shader aimed her blows. When her sword went forward, a rat fell, its throat cut out. It seemed impossible, but the two of them forced the Skaven out of the room. Owen took a blow to the chest, but his armour saved him, thankfully, and more Skaven fell. Chandril's shield was bent beyond all recognition, but she would not let go of it, obviously, because otherwise she'd be dead. The Skaven began to back off, beginning to think they were up against gods. Owen and Chandril were able to catch their breath, and Owen saw Deathmaster Snitch at the rear of the Skaven ranks near the door to his chamber. Owen then lost all sense of where he was. All he knew was that he had to kill Snitch. He charged into the massive Skaven, stabbing with his hook, slashing with his axe. Yeah, so that definitely means that he could have just broken his bonds, and when he saw the Deathmaster before, they're just, I mean, they're invincible, these characters. They're just invincible. I mean, there's a literal army of Skaven against them. You know, the entire, as far as I could tell, embodiment, you know, the entire body of Skaven troops are sleeping in this cavern that they've just sort of gone through. They all know they're there, and they're trapped in this little room, and they open the door, and they just kill all that come in their way. Snitch saw the barbarian crashing through his followers, coming closer and closer, and he felt fear. Fear which turned to panic, and he fled into his chambers. What a great villain. The Skaven were lost without their leader, and they fled into the stairs, into Snitch's room, or they ran away aimlessly. The Skaven were no longer a problem, and Owen rushed for Snitch's door. It closed before he got there, and he began bashing it with his shoulder. Chandril leant next to the door. Owen, will these help? She held out a bunch of keys. Well, at least she does something. You know, she gets one over him there. I mean, I know it's not about that, but at least he's just like, then he crashes through the door, he kills 1,000 more Skaven and kills Snitch and makes a carpet out of his entrails. You know, just at least there's you know, something there that the other character does better. She finds the keys, so that's good, I suppose. Chapter 6. If the cause is worthy, the cause is worth dying for. When they finally found the right key, there were a lot of them. The two of them could enter the dark hall, which was Snitch's chambers. It was silent inside. Most of the candles had been put out. The Skaven were no doubt hiding in the shadows. True enough, two of the rats came for Chandril, but since she was holding two weapons, she had discarded her shield and now held two swords, they held the same fate as the rest of their kind. So yeah, just dead. Owen stalked to the other end of the chamber, sneaking Snitch. Chandril called out a warning, but it was not quick enough because the Skaven warrior managed to leap on Owen's back. Its dagger descended and pierced the breastplate Owen was wearing. The armor did deflect some of the blow, and half of the blade buried itself into Owen's guts. Blimey, he got injured. What the hell? Owen the Barbarian got injured, everyone. But don't worry, he's got his axe, and that'll fix it in about 2 minutes. The Barbarian's hook went over his head, and the Skaven fell. During his movement, the knife fell to the ground, and Owen started to bleed. Owen ripped off the armor with his hook. Yeah, because, you know, you've been stabbed, so it's obviously useless. Owen, are you alright? asked Chandril. Owen turned and looked at her. She was about 15 feet away, and then something moved behind her. Duck, he cried. Her reaction was swift, and she was on the floor before Owen had thrown his axe. The axe span through the air and landed in the chest of the Skaven warrior behind Chandril. There was a hiss to his left, and Owen turned to face Snitch. Chandril was in combat with 3 rats. Oh, he's there. He only had his hook. Oh, yeah, only the hook that can cut through anything, and he used it, thrusting as if punching, and Snitch had enough time to roll out of the way. As he rolled, he drew a dagger and slashed at Owen. The blade caught on Owen's thigh. Owen kicked. The Deathmaster had not recovered his balance, and the foot landed on his chin. Snitch was thrown backwards, but he easily regained his balance. You are good, Hillman. Is Snitch better than you? Growled the Barbarian. Oh, the dialogue is just freaking awful. It's just so goddamn bad. Snitch jumped further than any human could towards Owen, and a clawed foot landed in Owen's face, knocking him flat. Oh, that's cool because, you know, yeah, Owen kicked and the foot landed on his chin. So Owen kicked Snitch, and then Snitch kicks Owen, knocking him flat. The Snitch landing behind him, standing. No, said the same assassin. I don't think so. Just then, Chandrel came in. She hadn't left, had she? She was just... She was just, like, there, but busy with some other foot soldiers. Who it took her just long enough to dispatch, by the way. Like, you know, she earlier she just killed, like 2 paragraphs ago, she just killed 2 instantly with 2 swords. Dead. But yeah, 3 of them. Oh, no. Now I've got to take enough time to get out of this so Owen can have his little fight with Deathmaster. Chandra came in and one of the Skaven spears. She brought this shaft up to Snitch's chin. Why don't you stab him? Why don't you stab him if you're there? Stab him! The rat fell back, but remained standing. As the elf thrust, now she thrusts, Snitch caught it and yanked it away from the shader. The shaft then went into Chandrel's cheek, and she fell. I keep saying she fell, he fell, it fell. You know, it's obviously a weakness to my writing at the time. One of the few weaknesses you may be able to point out. The sounds of battle came from the adjoining chambers. Owen knew why this was. The dwarves! Yes, of course. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? The dwarves, he shouted. Damn them, cried Snitch, and he ran off into the shadows. Owen stumbled over to Chandrel. He took her head in his hands. She had a red streak across her right cheek, but otherwise she was unharmed. You don't look so good, he said. That's good coming... Yeah, he's been stabbed in the gut. He's bleeding from a wound in his gut, which I seem to have forgotten about, because he's paid no heed to it whatsoever. He's not really bothered at all. That's good coming from you. What's wrong with the way I look? Nothing, you're perfect. Oh! Oh, God. Oh, yeah, I almost just threw up in my mouth a little bit there. I'm going to read this bit again. Owen stumbled, now he's stumbling, over to Chandrel. He took her head in his hands. She had a red streak, which is a bit touchy-feely, isn't it? Because, I mean, yeah, she's got whacked across the face with a spear shaft, but, I mean, she's a warrior, right? She'd have worse than that in life, but either way, she's like, oh, my putty's been hit. Took her head in his hand. She had a red streak across her right cheek, but otherwise she was unharmed. You don't look so good, he said. That's good coming from you. What's wrong with the way I look? Nothing, she said. You're perfect. It's just so freaking awful. I just don't have words for the clumsiness, the bumbling of this dialogue is just utterly freaking awful. I'm embarrassed to read it. I am. I'm sorry. You know, I really am. But it's just very much the same as the first book with the Catini Cardinal romance. You know, it's just the same. You know, I'm very good at having fights and stuff. Well, you're not very good, you know, but I'm obviously much more at home with people having fights and going into dungeons and stuff. But when it comes to a girl, I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. God, I just swore, but seriously. Alright. Owen's heart began to pound. They were about to kiss when they heard a strange noise, like a great stone being moved. They both knew what this was. The Snitch was escaping through a secret door. Of course it is! I mean, yeah! Let's find it outside, so it's the dwarves, and there's a stone being moved. Oh, it's escaping through a secret door. Owen got a torch. Let him go, please, Chandrel, she got to her feet. No, said Owen, and besides, the dwarves are pushing the rest back. Soon they will be all in here, and I'm not going after Snitch, I'm getting out of here. Good point, said Chandrel. And Chandrel took the acid garnet and gave it to Owen. Keep it for yourself, girl. Keep it. Okay. I'm confused about what dwarves these are. Where they're coming from. Like, I mean, have they got help from the city? I suppose they have. I mean, that's the only way they can make sense. I mean, they wouldn't come... It wouldn't be his companions, because... It's not obvious, by the way. You know, past Variax. When you say there's fighting, it must be the dwarves. It doesn't have to be. It's kind of reasonable, I suppose, but it's not something you're going to bet your life on, is it? And also, how many is there? I mean, it can't be Svenenko, so it has to be from the city. They've got help and they've come back pretty quickly, but yeah, that's all right. So okay, all right. Switch had gone from the room. Oh, hang on. To overcome pain is one thing. To overcome fear is another. Okay. Snitch had gone from the room into a narrow tunnel, obviously built from Skaven. For Skaven, not from Skaven. because both Owen and Shadow had to duck as they ran across it. Yes. Okay, they ran along it. The light did little, enabling them to only see a few feet ahead of them. The tunnel was so narrow that Owen was scratched by the rock on either side, but he did not moan, for it would do no good. Yeah, and he's a man's man. Soon they began... He's still been stabbed, by the way. I want to make that... Still the stab wound? You know, why have him injured and do nothing about it? Soon they began to climb steeply, and the two of them heard the Skaven horde behind them. In such cramped conditions, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. I bet they would. So they quickened their pace. So they're surprised they were soon in a much larger tunnel with a river running alongside the path they were on. The river melts disgusting, and they almost threw up on the spot. They had come out in the sewer under Caragvir. Okay, so the river's actually the sewer. Then, oh yeah, good. Oh, the sewer level. Here we go. Then Owen saw sunlight streaming down from a hole in the roof. They sprinted over to it, and Owen pushed the elf up. She in turn helped Owen out of the tunnel. Why? He weighs like 2 tons. How the hell is she going to help him out the tunnel? They appeared in the middle of a street, and they were almost run over by a cart in the bargain. That doesn't work, but okay. Okay, so they're out the tunnels. What? Said one of the dwarves. Who are you? Skaven! Where's Skaven? I just had an image of that. I didn't really think that one through, did I? I should have put friends stop and then point to Skaven down there. Who are you, Skaven? Similar dwarves began to laugh, but they suddenly stopped as a mutant rat poked its head out of the hole. Owen lopped off its ugly head. Now do you believe us? He crowed, slamming the lid on the hole. Skaven began to come out of the sewer in the next hole down the street. Back to your holes! Holes? What? Back to your holes, shouted the dwarves. Some of the dwarves stood immobile. Some rang for help, and some grabbed barrels of ale. Apples. What is going on? Another things had stood them on the sewer access points. Alright, okay. I just thought the first thing you do is just start drinking. It's like... Don't grab a weapon or call for help or anything. Just either stand around, run for help, yeah, or grab some booze, you know. Oh, they sat on them. They sat on them. Block the holes. Okay. Oh. Most of the dwarves were alert. Good. And boxes, barrels, carts, rocks, and furniture anvils were placed over the iron lids, which led down to the sewer. Those few Skaven who got out were swiftly killed, and those who got to the back streets did not get far. And all the while, Chandriel was tending to Owen's many wounds. On his arm were scratches, on his gut was a knife wound, on his leg a slash, not to mention many other cuts and bruises. It was only when she was sure Owen was alright that Chandriel would let the dwarves tend to her. In the confusion of the street, no one heard the battle going on in the sewers. And the dwarves killed the rest of the Skaven, all but one, Death Message. Yeah, just Snitch didn't die. Why would he? You know? How do we know? How do we know he didn't die? I mean, it's utter chaos. How do we know that you know, one of the few, you know, the massive Skaven, what wasn't Death? I don't think he's, like, remarkable as far as appearance goes. He wears a cloak. That's it, as far as I know. Which wasn't mentioned, but... Chapter 8. Revenge is sometimes all you have left. Well, at least we know this is the last chapter. When all the Skaven bodies had been discarded and the celebrations began, not Owen nor Chandriel joined in the festivities. No. Snitch had killed Owen's brother, we know, and Chandriel's sister, Straland. Oh, she has a name. It's like these people who Snitch is killing, you know, who the entire story is based upon, this act of revenge of, you know, getting to the Death Master. The actual people they kill, I mean, one's just mentioned in name, once, and the other one's in it for like 2 lines. Like Owen goes out in he had a drink and he had his arm over his shoulders, you know, his brother's shoulder, and then he dies. None of them say a word of dialogue. They're even dead before they even join the story. But they had failed in the task which was most important to them, his death. How do you know he's not dead? How do you know? It's complete chaos. You were running away. It's madness. Madness. How do we find him? Asked Chandril, almost in tears, as they sat alone in the tower. Oh yeah, of course, she'll be... Yeah, she's a girl, she's crying. We don't have to, said Owen. What do you mean? Think about it. We just stopped him from taking hold of Caragvia. He hates us as much as we hate him. Are you saying that we just stay here? No! He won't come back here in a hurry. Where shall we go then? South. That's mad. Why? It will be winter soon, and the mountains in the south are as barren as a desert. Yes, that's true, but I know someone who could put us up for a few nights. Nights? That's all we need. All we have to do is kill an ice dragon or two, and Stitch is bound to find out where we are. He'll come in the night, probably, kill us as we sleep. Have you got a better idea? Asked Owen. Chandril sighed. It's settled then. We leave in the morning after a good sleep. Sleep? Oh no! Sleep? Chandril asked Riley. That night was not all eventful. Oh, for God. Yeah, okay. Haw. They only met, like, hang on. But I mean, it could be. I mean, this could be a week. It doesn't have to be the same day. But even so, I mean, how could she resist, right? Though I mean, it's Owen. How could any woman resist Owen, right? That night was not all eventful. Yeah. Okay. Great. Goodbye, Sven, said Owen from atop midnight. Goodbye, Owen, Skaven Slayer, replied Sven. Good luck, called out Flint. Thank you, my friends, said Owen. Thank you. Olog the Seven shook his hand. It is us who should be thanking you for you both saving our city. Without meaning to, adding Chandril. If you ever need help, Oleg told them, the Dwarves of Caragvia will always be here. Oh, that's good. You want to go help me kill the... Owen nodded to acknowledge this, then he turned in his saddle. And here at midnight, Chandril in a horse Surefoot. She's got a horse now, called Surefoot. Started the long journey down the steps to the south. Oh, the steps are back, and hopefully they're avenged. The end. For now. What just happened? What just happened? I mean, there was some bits in that obviously I felt utterly freaking hilarious, but I'm just trying to... Okay, so, let's just go through this a little bit about what precisely happened in the story. So we're heading east towards the dwarf town of Caragvia. They see Skaven tracks, they go there, they find some Skaven, they war on the city, essentially. But the king wants them to go back there to check if there's more Skaven. So they do. They go into the place, they get kidnapped. No, they get captured, they escape. The dwarves go back to the city, they say, yep, there's Skaven there. So the dwarves send dwarves into the temple, kill all the Skaven, and Snitch escapes. Alright, well, I suppose the last story was like, you know, its plot was so complex I couldn't even manage to describe it properly. So at least this one was a little simpler. I suppose what this does is, you know, now makes Snitch hate Owen. So now Snitch is after Owen as opposed to the other way around. Or, you know, as well as. So that will lead us to the next story. The next story is called, and the last one, Owen's Revenge is next, people. Please give me your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear them. I know some of you are really enjoying these, and I hope you continue to do so. For me, it's getting a little more painful every time. Maybe the last book will redeem itself, being the last one, you know, go out with a bang. I'll say this one was better than the second one. Although there was some parts of the second one I did like. I did like how he went back to Arkan's lair through the area that he'd found and stuff. So maybe it's sort of on a pile. I mean, you know, once I've read the fourth one, and if you guys sit through all these, then please rate them. If you don't want to listen to the fourth one, then rate them now, because I'm interested to what you think of them. Anyway, right, I've wasted enough of your time. I'm going to wander off. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did in places. It's sort of like that's so bad it's good thing, except because I wrote it, it's kind of personal. And yeah, I wrote it when I was very young. And the scale of the whole thing for someone of that age is quite impressive. The fact that I finished it. And I suppose, like, because I didn't care how bad it was the only reason I finished it. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I kept on writing, and I did it. So that's a testament to something, I suppose. Blind ignorance, I guess. So I shall return for the conclusion. Book 4, Owen's Revenge, coming soon. Stay tuned. Until then, take care. Thanks for watching. And toodaloo.